This week on the Slaptail Squad, we're asking a question. What question is that? If podcasting was expensive, would we do it? Would you still listen? What if there was a regulatory board? What if we had all these rules? Would we still do it? That's a great question. And we're going to answer that question this week on the Slaptail Squad. So let's get slapping.
Slaptail Squad, assemble.
If you're listening to this, you're a member of the great Slaptail Nation, my nation. And who am I? Well, I am the Beaveman, master of the universe, creator of all things great and small, and commander-in-chief of the great Slaptail Nation army. And with me today is my number two, looking like, once again, he is the Unabomber in his little den of terror, the Rons.
Hey, Beaveman, how is it going?
It's going great. Ron, so good to see you yet again.
always good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Let me start off. It's like, I'm glad I got a microwave now.
You got a microwave? Is that actually your microwave, though? I mean, are you
yeah, it's my old microwave. I got a new microwave for a little powder donut, and I thought, just bring the other one downstairs.
Okay.
So...
all right. Well, anyway. Also with us today is the Trailer Park Monster. You may know him from the Monster's Lair, JD Hutchins. Thanks for joining us, JD.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, dude, it is our pleasure to have you.
Yes, it's always nice to have somebody who's like 3 decades younger than the Rons on our show.
always. I don't feel so old that I can't relate, but I feel old enough that, I have the gray.
You were coming to us from... yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm old at heart. I think we'll probably have more in common than me and the Beaveman will.
Nah.
That just means that he's saying that I'm immature and young. Which is fine. Which is also okay. You're coming to us from Fresno. A little known fact about Fresno. A young man named Daniel LaRusso almost had to spend the summer there, but instead he went to Okinawa with Mr. Miyagi.
Wow. What is that?
This is facts, yes.
Yeah, these are all important facts.
I know why it sounds familiar. Did you know he has a black belt in karate?
He does, not actually. Daniel does, but, Ralph Macchio does not. He does not have a black belt. He does not have any belts, actually. Truth be told.
Then how does he hold up his pants?
Those are different types of belts.
Oh,
just like, JCPenney's 398 belt. Anyway. All right. Well, we are asking a very important question today. Glad that JD's here. He can give us a perspective on another podcast. Here's a very important question that I've been thrown out into the universe for contemplation. A contemplative question, if you will. Podcasting. Ron's podcasting.
Yes. Podcasting.
If it cost us a lot of money, would you still do it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I've got when I got your question, I've got my reasons why. We'll go into that later. But yeah, definitely.
That's it. That's your brief answer. It was just yes, definitely. You can't expand on that at all.
Do you want a long fucking
I would like you to
that?
say something.
Well, okay, for one, freedom of speech, I'm all for that. You and I are both ex-vets. And, every time you try to sequester the right to speak, regardless whether it's hate speech or whatever speech, you are actually...
Yes.
I can hear breathing too. I mean, it's kind of erotic as he's breathing.
I know. For a minute there, I was starting to poke one.
Are you trying to sequester him?
No, I was just saying that
he can't breathe now.
No, I'm just starting to pitch a tent over here, and I don't want to pitch a tent for the entire podcast. So I was trying to be discreet and saying, "Hey, JD, I can hear you breathing." But you, Rons, you just want to drop. Rons, you like to do things during the show. And either you're gonna wait for me to edit it out, or you're like, no, just leave it in. Just leave it in.
Sorry, guys. He got patriotic. I started getting hot and heavy over here.
That's all right.
Awesome. Back to what I was saying, though. I mean, the right that we defended the Constitution for freedom of speech. Now, there's something called smart speech, and that's you can't yell fire in a crowded building, all that bullshit.
You call it what?
Speech.
Smart speech. I thought you said smart speech. That's fine. Smart.
Yeah,
speech.
Sure. I called it that too. However, when you try to silence a group, there'll be other ways like pirate radio. When you were overseas, did you listen to pirate radio?
No, I listened to Armed Forces Network.
Oh, you were such bleeding red, white, and blue. I love you.
No, we were over there.
Stuck on that. He was stuck on that state programmed radio.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I get it.
No, what did we do? What we did was, when I was overseas, CDs were just now coming out. Really, I mean, they were pretty expensive too. So we just bought a bunch of tapes, and then every month they would get new CDs at the PX, and they were always bands that you never heard of. So we just bought them, and come to find out, a lot of those ended up being like alt groups, alternative rock groups, which was pretty cool. But no, I didn't listen to regular radio because it was in Germany. All you had was AFN, or you heard German radio. So I didn't listen to any quote pirate radio.
I was in England, so when
good
I was
for
in
you
England,
in England.
I know, it was so cool. I would listen to pirate radio. I think it was out of the North Sea or one of the seas or whatever.
Did you listen to pirate radio?
Yeah, I did. Right, but they didn't have any pirate tunes, like stuff like Johnny Depp stuff.
Blow the man down.
Blow the man down. There you go. Hey, but go ahead.
I never listened to pirate radio, but I did listen to pirate metal quite a bit back in the days.
Dude, Ailstorm rocks. Right.
I agree with that 100%. There was also a band back in the day. I believe they were named Swashbuckle.
Okay.
They were a little bit on the harder side, more like a death metal band, but they would come out in full pirate regalia and sing guttural vocals about raping, pillaging, acquiring treasure, so on and so forth.
I will
good times.
Check them out.
Now,
But
isn't
not many people know Ailstorm
Ron's isn't swashbuckling when you stick your whole arm up somebody's rectum and then you move it around as if you're stirring a big jar of Kool-Aid? Isn't that what swashbuckling is?
I thought we talked about impact bowels at one point, and I'm like, and by the way, everybody I've talked to who listens to the podcast, how you come up with some of these subjects, are like, they look at me like I'm the one that came up with that impacted bowel statement. I'm like, whoa, that's the Beaveman, and yes, he's that crazy.
Oh, should we do our disclaimer? This is not appropriate for children. If you are listening to this, you should know that by now, that you should not be listening. You probably shouldn't even listen to this out loud. You really should listen to it with headphones, Bluetooth, whatever. Now, speaking of which, JD, having you on the show, your show is pretty clean. Is this going to affect your reputation at all, or are you already going to throw out some sort of disclaimer to your listening audience as well to say, hey, don't hold this against me?
No, I have no problem working blue, so don't feel bad about me.
Whoa. We don't recognize color. Everybody's equal in comedy. Oh my God!
There you go,
this
Rob.
racist guy.
In Canada, there is no blue. In Canada, it's only red and white. There's no blue.
Well, JD, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you along. As you can tell, freeform it.
Yeah. Ron's way to talk about free speech. Good for you. Good for you, buddy. Good for you, pirate radio. You know what that reminded me of? That Christian Slater movie from the 90s, Pump Up the Volume. Remember that? Did you see that movie?
Yeah. Kind of an underground radio station.
Yeah, he was doing shortwave, basically stealing FM. Yeah. He was broadcasting, which I guess would make him fall under the FCC, which we don't. So we don't have to worry about that. So fuck that. We don't fall under that. We can do whatever we want because it's podcasting. It's not broadcasting. Right.
Ooh, I love that. But actually, I listened to a report a couple weeks ago on how someone wanted to regulate podcasting and bring it under the FCC guidelines. And I'm like, no, this is the last bastion of free speech.
And he was like, and I was like, no.
No, I'm not. I mean,
you're a deep motherfucker, Oz. He was like, and I was like, no.
No.
You want to regulate me? Well, let me tell you, I got something to say about that. No.
But you got guys like JD who does the Monsters Lair podcast, right? And I mean,
yes, he does. When I introduced him, I actually said that. So you don't have to say right. We know that he does it.
Right. But we've got guys like you and me who are kind of working blue, as JD said. I mean, we grew up in a generation, or I did at least, of Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay, George Carlton, whatever the name is.
What?
Yeah, I'm getting
George
the name wrong.
Carlin?
I'm getting flustered. Yeah, George Carlin, one of my favorite, right?
There was Colonel
nowadays, if you
Sanders.
say
There
something-
was the Burger King. There's this Ronald McDonald, and anybody else? Bob Hart, Bob Newhart,
Bob Newhart,
Bob Hope,
Bob Hope.
Bob New Hope.
Yeah. However, when you start taking away and whittling it down, and all you got left are, and this is going to come out bad, but snowflakes, no matter what you say or do, holy shit, you're walking into a shitstorm every fucking day just saying hello.
Well, that's the good thing about podcasting, right? We can do whatever we want, basically. We're not doing hate speech. The thing is, when people talk about regulating podcasts, and the reason why I brought this up is I don't remember how I think it just popped into my head, as most things do. But I don't know if you know this. Several years ago, and it was kind of shocking because I can remember Mark Maron talking about it years ago, and he was panicking because he got a letter in the mail that said, "Hey, basically, you owe us money because podcasting has a patent and you're violating that patent, so you owe us money." And I thought this was just a couple of years ago, so it goes to show you as you get older how time seems to just fly by and you don't realize how long ago it was. Guess when that was?
I'm going to say 1925.
No, it was 2013 till the 2014 timeframe. That means I've been listening to Mark Maron for like 7 fucking years. So he was all freaked out about that and was worried that podcasting was going to be that they were going to lose money. They were going to have to pay all this money to these people that were trying to say that they had a patent on podcasting. And what happened was they went after the person who apparently had the biggest podcast at the time, which was Adam Carolla. And they went after him, assuming that he had tons of money. Well, the patent, you can read all about it. I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to screw it up anyway and get it wrong. Basically, they were saying that the idea that they had that was patented was that their idea was that someday there would be some sort of technology that you could download on a regular interval every time it came out on some sort of device, and you could listen to it that way. But they never made anything. They never did anything like that. So all they are is they're basically patent trolls. They get patents and they go after it if something even vaguely resembles the idea that they had, so they get paid. And they've made millions of dollars on it, but the mistake they made was they went after podcasters thinking that we have money to give them, which they didn't.
Yeah, they're barking up the wrong tree on that one.
Yeah. I mean, how much am I going to give you? What are you going to get from me?
Especially the guys who do it in the basement, like I do.
Well, I'm in the basement.
What are you going to get? A broken microwave or a microwave and a dorm fridge?
I'll poop in your bed.
Pot.
I'll poop in your bed.
Yeah. The Johnny Depp special.
No, that's the Amber Heard special. Johnny Depp.
Ron's, they might come and take the nice tinfoil coating your windows. I don't know.
Right? Or that little hat that we wear.
I will send it to him right now because if you notice, I have a ball of tinfoil ready to go.
There you go.
There we go.
Why do you have a ball of tin right there?
Hello, did you not listen to him?
Defensive purposes.
Is that what you're using that for?
Can't get in.
Is that your little Johnny hat?
No,
You got to protect both heads.
Can't get
You
in.
got to protect both heads.
Well,
hey guys, the government just came out and released that UFOs are real, so Ron might be onto something there.
oh, well, I'm always onto something. Unfortunately,
What do they call them now? UAPs?
UAPs, yeah.
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
we didn't need
Whenever I
them
hear
to
that
tell.
word
We didn't need them to
phenomenon-
tell us that they exist. We knew that.
every time I hear that word phenomena, I want to go phenomena.
Da-na-na-na.
It's just an earworm.
The thing that gets me about it is people hear the word unidentified flying object or unidentified aerial phenomenon, and they skip over the most important word in there, unidentified. Just because it's unidentified doesn't necessarily mean it's evil aliens from another planet coming to get us. It just means it's unidentified, and I think people get hung up a lot on that. And, really at the base of the word, it just means what it means, unidentified. Could be anything.
Well, I'm going to throw my
So with
prediction
that
out there.
said-
Go ahead, Runs. Go ahead.
Well, with that said, do you think they're coming back? They're coming to take some of us home?
I mean, I've always thought I'm not from this world, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Now, will they divide us into? Is there like a first class on the?
No, what Ron's is hoping they're coming to get him for breeding purposes, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to look at your genetics, Ron's, and say, "Oh, here's a superior male. We really want this guy's. We really want. Here's a bunch of hot alien chicks, and we really need your genetic code." For some reason, I don't think that's going to happen. You're like, "Will they separate us?"
I'm just hoping. I'm just hoping the in-flight movie's really good. And they have a great snack tray.
Hopefully it's long too. That's a long ways to go.
Well,
It's only 33 years outside the galaxy, our own solar system.
I would hope we would just do interdimensional travel anyway. Personally, I don't want to be on a long flight. They wouldn't take me anyway because I'm a. They wouldn't take me anyway because I'm a little brown man. They only want people like you, Rons. They only want your genetic code.
No, they'll want you.
Your far superior genetics.
Well, they'll look at the sleeve tattoo you have. They're like, you must be superior to have all those markings on you, and you are. Let's face it.
I don't know. That could
He's
be
like
how
a tribal chief.
Or yeah, that's how I was marked by.
Chief.
Yeah, that was how I was marked for the camps. You never know.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh God, that is just.
You never know how the aliens think. You know what's really sad? You know, here's a little segue. It's really sad that we still can't make fun of World War II. It's like too soon. Is it still too soon? Is it still too soon? It's too soon.
Yeah.
I think it's in bad taste just because we're always on the cusp of World War III, maybe.
It's
maybe.
Yeah, you know, it's going to happen one way or another. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, hopefully the aliens have gotten me off this planet so I can watch the fireworks down on the planet.
I saw a really funny meme or GIF or GIF or whatever the fuck it's called today, and it was the
GIF is peanut butter.
Okay, it just said the sentence was, "Man, in 2023 they'll probably have flying cars," and then below that it said 2023. It was this lady and a goat, and she had her baby sucking off the goat's tit.
Hey, goat's milk is not bad, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean. But I mean, the whole baby formula thing. Just you got to watch that milk. You got to watch that documentary, Rons, about milk.
Oh yeah, you're back to that documentary.
It's a good thing she wasn't Scottish, otherwise it would have been a sheep, and she would have been doing something totally different to it.
Yeah.
No, it would have been a ram, not a. But
they're still all sheep.
Yeah, sheep.
It's still sheep.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say ram and
still sheep. I mean, it's still sheep.
Yeah.
Rons, you have ties to Canada. Do you have any Scottish ancestry in your lineage there?
Well, I am not from Canada, but thank you. So, but I don't. I'm not sure actually. I did a 23andMe and it came back rejected.
It came back rejected. It said alien jizz.
Nope.
It said some sort of alien DNA.
You guys know what a Scotsman wears under his kilt, right?
A Scotswoman?
No.
Kinda. You're on the right track there, Beaveman, but I was always told on a good day, nothing but lipstick.
Fair.
And what would Tremonde wear?
Rons, let me ask you a question.
Probably just a different shade of lipstick, right?
Did your 23andMe actually get rejected because you used the wrong sample because you
Just a little.
Is that what happened? Did you
Just a little.
in the container instead of give your spit?
You wanted to use Mixie. I was wondering how you were going to use Mixie.
Is that what happened though?
No, I never sent a 23andMe, and I you know. And speaking of 23andMe, I mean, how many? They said they wouldn't turn over their findings to law enforcement for DNA samplings, right? And once again, it's the kind of like the last bastion of how much freedom do we actually have?
Yeah, but if you well, I mean, it's a related subject, so I will dive into it. If you're interested in donating your genetic material, I think that I'm on the fence. I think that I could argue.
Did you jump over that fence like last podcast?
Yeah, I could argue for either one. I think it is nice to be able to link. You know, it's not like it's an easy process. The way they did the Golden State Killer, how they found him. It's not like it was easy.
Definitely.
It's not like it was an easy epidemiological process to get to him. So I guess I'm on the fence. I kind of think if you can link, I mean, they've got all of our info anyway. They already rule us. They already own us. We carry phones. They know where we are all the time. I've got that chip in the back of my head that they put there.
That reminds me of a meme that I saw recently. It said, people in the 50s, they better not put any wiretaps in my home. And then it had a picture and it said 2022. And it showed someone talking to their Alexa. And it said, hey, wiretap, play so-and-so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they pretty much have us at this point if they are out to get us, I would say.
Well, you can ask your Alexa that question. You can actually, I did that to my brother because his whole house is like that. And this was years ago. And he was saying, Alexa, play this. Alexa, do that. Alexa. And finally I just said, Alexa, is the government monitoring our conversation right now? And Alexa said, I can't answer that question.
See, I'm surprised you guys don't see the beauty in being a practical joke here. I would say, Alexa, set horror sounds for 3 a.m.
Set horse sounds? Did you say horse sounds?
Yeah, horse sounds. Why not?
Why would you have horse sounds at 3 a.m.?
Yeah,
what's a horse sound like?
I was going to say, I don't know.
You don't know?
I would have gone with scary sounds, right? Horror sounds. Well, that would have been fantastic.
Horror sounds. Horror sounds at 3 a.m. Yeah. JD, what do you feel? How do you feel about the answer to that question?
The monetization on the podcasting question?
Yeah.
Just to reset track here. I kind of have a two-pronged point of view on that. As of right now, I'm in like the middle of season 3 of my show. At this point, I wouldn't give up just because I put so much time and effort into what I've been cultivating there. I would definitely continue podcasting if I was behind a paywall or whatever. I would try to utilize some of the tools that are out there to maybe raise some funds, things like Patreon and other types of services like that, maybe, and see if I could get like a crowdfunded situation going on. However, if I was a new podcaster barely getting into the game and maybe kind of checking it out and seeing if maybe that was something I would be interested in, I would be kind of devastated to find that it's something that you have to pay into to start. And that might deter me from starting at the ground level and building up. But like I said, I'm so far deep in at this point. I'm pretty much committed to getting this done and continuing it. So I think I would definitely continue, even if it was a paid service.
So at this point, with you being so far deep in, do you find that
Just a little.
Is that what happens when you're that far deep in?
Honestly, sometimes when I come across some of the topics that I research and get a little too deep down the wormhole and find myself in the deepest, darkest bowels of the internet, I do piss a little.
So, on that note, though, did you guys ever make homemade radio shows?
What?
Yeah,
what are you talking about? Like when you're 4? You're like,
no, because when I was in the Netherlands, a guy used to do this. Right, just
I don't know,
for shits and grins, and so basically it was an archaic way of podcasting or an archaic way of radio shows, right? And I thought that was really cool.
So wait a minute, so you're asking me if when I was 18 years old in Germany,
yeah,
if I made up little radio shows,
yeah,
that's exactly what you think that I was doing at that time?
Well, I don't know what you were doing.
18 years old as a paratrooper in Germany in an infantry unit, full of testosterone, among other things, surrounded by cute German girls. And
the field, you were masturbating. If you weren't masturbating, you were making your own.
And you wonder if I was out making my own little radio show.
Yes, I do believe I mentioned that several times.
I'm going to say...
I think Beaveman was too busy out there making horse sounds.
Yeah, at 3 a.m.
His own radio show.
Yes, at 3 a.m. Exactly. Silly question, Rons. Was I doing? No, I was not.
I know. But it goes along the same lines as like, what happens if we start to sequester or eliminate freedom of speech? I mean, you got JD's podcast, you have ours. I mean, freedom of speech is something I hold dear and near. I don't like hate speech. I hate it, in fact. But I will defend the honor, because if I have to limit one, I'm going to limit the other. And that's a slippery slope you're on. It really is. You can't say for one group versus the other. Now, you don't have to listen to that hate group.
Well, that's the point.
And I that.
Well, but and that's
he's giving hate speech on hate speech.
Yeah. Well, but part of it is we're not regulated. Like the FCC is not regulating us. But if you agree to be on a podcast platform, they have their own rules. And one of those rules are they do monitor what we do. And if they find out that you are doing, they will eliminate. They'll eliminate eventually. They'll get you eventually. If you do have a podcast on white supremacy, you're gonna get eliminated eventually. They'll find you eventually, and you won't be on any.
Yeah,
platforms.
but you can release it on your own website.
Yeah, you could, but you won't be. What I'm saying is, you won't be on these platforms. Like where you won't be on Apple Podcasts. You're not going to be on iHeartRadio. You're not going to be. They'll find you eventually. It's written into their contract. It's written into that little agreement that you have to broadcast or podcast, rather.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Amazon's a good one. Look at that. Amazon
I
actually sends you out their agreement that you look at before you go on Amazon.
Wow.
Thank you, Amazon. And that's all I'll say about Amazon.
Alexa?
I'm just saying thank you, Amazon. That's all I'm saying.
Alexa's listening.
Yeah, thank you, overlords.
Now, how much do you think would be too much to podcast? What do you think? Ron, you pay nothing now. You don't buy your equipment. You don't pay for us to put the podcast out. You do basically nothing. Basically, you do nothing. Except show up.
Yeah, you're gonna bring that up, aren't you?
I do. I buy the equipment. I produce the podcast. Yes, I edit the podcast. I have the editing software.
I am humbly grateful for all the effort that you put in, and in fact, our fan base loves you. They love they love everything about you.
How much is too much?
Well, you're the benevolent overlord, so they have to.
How much is too much? What do you think?
I don't know. Let's throw that over to JD for a second because he's got more of a
because he does more than you because he has so much.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to look. He lives in Fresno, California, where it's always great weather there. You never hear about any bad weather there, right? He looks like he lives in a 5-star mansion, right? And the sunglasses are Oakley's, I think.
A 5-star single wide mansion that sits on wheels. Yes, Franz, you are correct.
Wow. You can afford wheels. That is awesome.
Yeah, Ron's house is up on blocks.
Big bucks.
Yeah, Ron's is on blocks. He can't. His isn't even mobile. He can't even move it.
There you go. It's hard to say how much would be too much. It depends if it's if we're talking like a monthly fee. Is it subscription based? Is it something that they automatically take out? Is it something that changes depending on how many listens you get per episode? There's a lot of questions to be asked there, but
isn't that how they monetize? You start to get monetization, right? Is that you get so many listeners that someone takes notice, like, hey, would you like to sponsor us?
I think each service kind of has their own terms when it comes to that, depending who you go through. I know with Anchor, the one that I go through, it's basically per every 1,000 listens of a particular episode, you get a certain amount. Now, the amount that I receive is based off of the ad read that I do for Anchor that I can put or not put into any of my episodes if I deem necessary. Sometimes I do short little bonus episodes that I don't want to clutter that up with an ad, so I sometimes will just not even put it in there at all, which is fine. Sometimes the longer episodes, I may do 2 or 3 ads depending on how many breaks I have. I think what they consider it is a cost per mil. So per every 1,000 plays, I think I make like $12 or something small like that.
Wow,
so
you're rolling in the big bucks.
Not so much. I don't have a lot of listeners, so.
Yeah, but 12. But if you had, let's say if they came down, and I think that was if they did try to regulate us, I think that it probably would be that there would be some small fee that we would pay probably monthly, and the bigger you get, the more you have to pay. Probably what would happen. I don't think it would happen anyway. We're too small and we're too broad, and there's no way they can. It's no way. Not probably in the next 10 years is it going to be able to come under any type of regulation. Plus, it's podcasting is
platforms out there.
Yeah, well, and podcasting is we're not the only country that podcasts.
No way.
No way.
I didn't know. Does Canada podcast?
Sure, there's people in Canada that podcast. There's people everywhere. I talked to a guy from South Africa the other day.
How do you know he was from South Africa? Did he want you to send you money?
No, he was not from Nigeria. He was from South Africa.
Yeah, I don't know where that Canada thing came from, Bronze. I apologize. I could have swore at some point in time I heard you were from Canada, so I just rolled with that.
Listen,
No, we said that he
JD,
acts like an
one thing you
alien.
don't do on this is you don't apologize. So shut the fuck up and roll with it. That's all you
Damn.
do.
All
Damn.
right, fair enough.
Damn.
But listen,
Although I am a podcast host, and that shutting the fuck up thing is a problem with me. So
you know what? Same here. And usually Beaveman keeps me in check by yelling at me. If you've listened to the previous podcast, he's a very vocal person when I screw up. And I'll tell you what, I've talked to some of our local listeners, and they love him. They absolutely adore him.
You need to ask yourself why they love me, because if they just love me because I yell at you, then that's a problem. Because that just means that they are just they find you annoying and they want to yell at you, but they don't, and so they get satisfaction out of me doing it.
Ron's, I'll be honest. I've told Beaveman myself. One of my favorite things about listening to your guys' show is when he does berate you and Swan and whoever else he has on his episodes. So,
well, you kind of live vicariously through the Beaveman because you can't yell at people. Like I said, it goes back to being a snowflake these days. You can't say your opinion. We have a limited freedom of speech, if you want to call it that. We don't have, hey, how you doing? What the fuck do you mean by that? The Beaveman allows himself to express his opinion, right? And I've expressed my opinion a couple of times where I've called him Xanax boy, calm down. But you can't do that in society. You can't, right? If you're into the whole UFO conspiracy theory, more power to you, right? I believe in it. But, you're going to get someone go, it's not in the Bible. The Bible says it's only Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ will come back and smote thee. No, I don't think he will. Then you go, well, the four apocalypse. Okay, where are they working right now? Right? So you get some Bible thumper out there going, no. The B-Man puts it out straight. I put it out straight. Everybody loves the way it happens. If you can just say what you feel sometimes and not have any retribution for it because it's your personal opinion, I'm pretty sure the world would be a little bit calmer.
I just spaced out for 2 minutes. What were you even fucking talking about? What
that's
when I let you,
if I ever heard one,
when I let you fucking just talk, and sometimes I just sit here and I'm like, what are you even fucking talking? You talked about aliens, the Bible, free speech. There was that part where you talked about sitting on your thumb in public.
Oh my God, am I a right-wing Christian now?
There was that part where you talked about wanting to thinking it should be legal to have multiple wives. I don't know what we were talking about. There was that brief moment when you talked about how when you first started martial arts, you didn't understand why they didn't lube you up in oil and work your muscles to help you lengthen them for your stretching. The things that you talk about, Ron, I don't understand where your mind goes.
Neither do I.
It's very confusing. It's very confusing.
I don't know the lube part.
Should I be concerned that I was following very closely to what Ron was saying?
You should be concerned. You should be concerned. What did he say? Because I don't even know.
So let me say this before you continue, JD. Usually Tremonde, if you listen, translates what I say, and he's like, oh, this is what he means. So it's great. You will be the white Tremonde. So, and you will...
Why has he got to be a white Tremonde? Why can't he just be Tremonde? Why does the default always have to be a white Tremonde, Rons?
Maybe Tremonde is the Black James. Maybe we don't know.
Yeah, there we go.
I now don't know what anybody is saying. Okay. Anyway, JD. May I call you JD?
Absolutely.
That's kind of ironic. You say, JD, what? Can I call you that? Well, you already did.
Runs, these are just my conversational things where I sound... It's kind of like when I say good evening. Do you understand? That's
yeah,
like I said earlier, Beaveman, you can call me anything but late for dinner.
How old are you, JD? If you don't mind me asking.
34.
34. So young one.
Well, 34 on August the 7th. I guess I'm 33 now.
That's a difficult question. It's like, how old are you?
Happy birthday, JD.
I will be 37 in 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm 37 and a half, right? A half and 3/4.
That's how my mother tells me how old I am, because
that half matters.
Still
it
counting.
makes me feel like a big boy, Rons.
And you know what? You're almost old enough to have your own opinion.
Yeah,
almost. I'm getting there.
Right. What was your motivation to start the Monsters Lair? And I will say this, by the
That's what
way.
I was going to ask.
By the way, this is the Rons hasn't listened to your podcast because the Rons he's a dick, and I told him to listen, but he didn't.
He did.
No,
And
I
yes,
did I tell? I don't. Yeah, I did because I told you on
Yeah,
one of the other
yeah, you
podcasts.
did. You said, hey, if you get a chance, give it a listen to, right? Because you
Hey,
raved about him. I mean,
Beaveman, he may be a dick, but he's our dick.
I love that. Thank you. You know, JD, you're actually coming out of your shell now, and I want you to come out even more.
Whoa,
right? Because
whoa! Hold on there, and you don't need to flirt with every guest we have. He doesn't need to come out of his shell. You know, the Rons calls your pants the shell, so I don't think you need to come out of your shell for the Rons.
Hey, honestly, he had me at he can come. So
you can tell you run a clean podcast in the beginning, and when we first started, you're like watching and choosing your words. Now you're like, let it fly. He says, like,
yeah, my podcast isn't as clean as it often seems. I think the issue there is I write clean. But when I'm kind of shooting from the hip on my show, it's not always on the up and up. But that's okay because I used to have a disclaimer at the beginning of my episodes. I stopped doing that because I stopped caring. But yeah.
Actually, the last one was really good. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because I want to ask a question. But yeah, what was your motivation? What was your motivation for starting the podcast?
My motivation for my podcast was to get some of the crazy thoughts and ideas that aren't so kosher to have it like dinner party talk and get those out and kind of express those and get those out of my mind and have an outlet for that kind of stuff. Whether it's ghost stories, UFOs, conspiracy theories, true crime type stories, whether it be serial killers or just weird crimes that have happened, like the DB Cooper thing, things of that nature. My inspiration kind of doing that show goes back to the old Coast to Coast AM days.
Oh, Art Bell.
Art Bell is a huge inspiration of mine for doing this podcasting thing. Also, George Norrie, George Knapp, all those kind of guys. Also, shows like Unsolved Mysteries, In Search of, things of that nature that kind of were made these mainstream, like flagship type shows, but delved into things that were obscure topics or maybe things that weren't in the common public zeitgeist and kind of approaching those in a serious manner. But then on the flip side of that coin, I also take a lot of inspiration from the old school horror hosts, guys like Sven Gulli, Elvira, Vampira,
Cassandra Peterson. Oh, yeah, you're getting into stuff I love.
Gouliardi, things of that nature, guys from that era.
This is why you would like the Rons, because now this is why you do get along so well with the Rons, because you've done like 4 lists so far. I'm like, this could do it. This is where Ron. This is just like the right. You're like, look at the. This is you, CJD. This is you in 20 years. Look at Ron. That's you in 20 years, right there. You'll be in a little. You'll be in a tiny basement yourself.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not too mad at that, to be honest.
There you go. Speaking of Art Bell, I found one of his books for sale at a bookstore somewhere. And I opened up the cover. And what do I find? An autograph of Art Bell.
Oh, wow. That's excellent.
My uncle, before he passed away,
except it said David Henry. It wasn't didn't say Art Bell. What's that? It was actually just the owner of the book, and his name wasn't Art Bell, but he did find a signature inside. Usually when it says property of, it's not the signature of the author, Ron. It's just somebody's name. They just want you to know that was their book.
Oh, that's excellent. But my uncle was a huge Art Bell fan before he passed away. You mentioned Coast to Coast, and I'm like, only the really underground people listen to AM radio, get it like that frequency that's coming out of Canada, and they listen to Art Bell, back in that. And his theories, like, he would allow anybody to call in, and when you listen to him, it's like, well, I think this is what's happening in wherever. It's like, yeah, okay, we can go with this. And he just rolled with it constantly.
Yeah, that was his absolute strength, was dealing with some of these most outlandish, ridiculous, like, crazy tinfoil hat people and just treating them with respect and hearing their opinion out and really not making them feel like idiots, no matter how he personally have felt about specific topics. And you could tell, I mean, there was episodes where it would definitely come across where he knew everything that these people were saying was a complete crock of bullshit, but he allowed them an outlet
Oh,
and he
yeah.
never belittled or made fun of anyone and let them have their platform. And that's kind of an inspiration to the Monsters Lair that I do, because every now and then I do interview segments. We don't talk about anything like as crazy as you would hear on Coast to Coast, or at least not yet. We haven't, but I do kind of have that approach in interviews as well. Like, this guy may be a complete nut job, but here he has a voice, and I'm not going to belittle anyone or tell anyone that they're wrong for what they believe, because beliefs are personal and they're to the person. And
oh, no, I got that. Yeah, it's like, and also what I loved about it is like, so where are you calling from? A little boat out in the Pacific, and I'm on a pirate radio. It's like, are you listening to Swashbucklers? It's like, how did you know?
The fuck are you talking
Right.
about? What the fuck are you talking about?
Sometimes you can get by on the Beaveman where he has no idea what you're talking
No,
about.
I know what you're
but
fucking
the other
talking about, but I'm
people
just saying, I'm like, what are you rambling about? No, you know what's really interesting about that whole thing, and you're right, when you listen to, his show or whatever, and there's people that are talking, and he's calmly talking to them. That's the same thing that you do that I've done whenever I have mental health patients, especially those that are having a psychotic break, or they're schizophrenic and having a psychotic break. They will tell you the most bizarre shit. And there's two schools of thoughts on that. One, if you just listen, there's a possibility that you're playing into their own delusions, right? But the other school of thought is if you correct them or try to reorient them too significantly, you can make things worse.
How would you reorient them?
For example, let's say somebody says, hey, do you think it's possible for you to have intercourse with a ghost? And you're like, really, you're just asking.
You can in Ghostbusters.
So you just say, you basically restate the question back to them and say, so let me see if I understand what you're asking me. You're asking me if it's possible that you could have intercourse with a ghost. And then they just expand on their story. You don't usually tell them they're wrong. Now, some people do that. They'll be like, no, that's not possible. You can't do this, whatever. Really, the best thing to do is just to let them talk, which is what you do. You just let them talk. And then you check to make sure that they've got their medications, that they took them on time or whatever, or that they're therapeutic. But some things that people say, you're like, okay, we know for a fact, when somebody says, I need to be out front because the president sent a helicopter for me and it's going to be here in the next 2 minutes. I'm like, one, we don't have a helipad where we're at currently. And two, I know that the president is not sending a helicopter for you. So some things, some things you can't really play into that. You don't want to play into their delusions too much. But the power that somebody has,
also something I put into practice on my everyday regular day job, because I do work private security, and every now and then we have those transients that we encounter that they tell you these crazy outlandish stories. I had one lady who was convinced that she was an operative at a secret government base under one of the shopping centers, and you kind of just go, oh yeah, okay, the control pad's over there on the tree if you ever need to get in, and you kind of let them be. But yeah, this the fine line between placating and like trying to reorient, like you said, right?
Right, and you don't want
to go put a control pad on that tree. One of those fake control pads, and just put it on the tree.
Well,
I can't say that I hadn't thought about it, but no, we never actually physically did that. No.
Well, this is one of those things that I have always told patients, part of the doing my job is that you encounter a good percentage of people with mental health issues in my particular job. And I always tell them most of the time, I'm like, let me refer you to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, because you don't want my opinion on stuff, because I find a lot of the stories compelling. And I'm like, that's really interesting. I've had patients tell me, they're like, I'm pretty sure that I'm being monitored by the government. These people were veterans. And, they're like, well, what did you do in the military? And then they tell me, I'm like, I can't say that they're wrong. I can't full on say that you could be wrong. So I'm like, this is why I don't, and I tell people, like, this is why I don't do psych, because I would be the worst. I'd be like, this is really interesting. So you think that they're monitoring your every move, and you were military intelligence back in the day, or you were a SEAL, or you were special forces, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I can't say that they're lying. I'm like, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe they are. Maybe somebody is monitoring them. What do I know?
And that's the beauty of shows, I think, like Coast to Coast, and even mine it to an extent. Like, no matter how outlandish or crazy the topic is, at the core of all of those topics and all of those discussions, there's little nuggets of truth in there that we can pick out, and they really get the wheels turning and making you think. And that's really what my show at the end of the day is about, is just getting those minds open, making you think outside the box, making you think of new possibilities, and maybe seeing things that you thought before that were complete BS, maybe seeing those from a different angle or approaching them in a different way through someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes too much information is released on that, though?
What do you mean?
Well, when someone calls in, right, and there's a certain amount of restriction on information, do you think we release too much information sometimes on too many items or subjects?
I'm so confused right now. Are you talking about like on his show, or are you talking about in general? Like if somebody asks us something,
in general,
how would we know if we're releasing information that's fictitious or factual? How would we know?
Well, you're the government. You should know this.
Well, okay. Let's put it this way. Some things that people say about the government,
you're coming up.
some things that people say about the government, the reason why I can sort of believe some of the stuff that people say is look at how things change as time goes by, the little things that we find out. You know, when people are like, oh, we weren't in Vietnam until the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, we were. Like, we didn't cross over into Cambodia. Yeah, we did. Like, all these things that they say, I'm like, okay, like, how about, like, the mech suits, you know, like Iron Man and all this other stuff? The Army was working on a mech suit decades ago.
Well, I agree with that. It's sort of like when my son came home and he was talking about the limited nuclear treaties that we have around the world. And he says, oh, we don't have nukes there. And me and another guy down the street who's Army, we just kind of sat back like, yeah, they want you to believe that. I'm like, and he's like, no, Dad, we signed a treaty. I'm like, yeah, they want you. Yeah, we're not going to buy into that.
Well, how about the most recent conflict? I mean, this is a little bit straight, but it all goes back to free. But it all goes back to free speech. No, not the Duke in the bed. It goes back to free speech and everything. But you know that some of the equipment that we gave to Ukraine was Russian equipment. Like we gave them MiGs. Like, why do we have MiGs?
Well, even there's a recent story that I saw about the most recent attack, and there's a Ukraine story out there that says, you know, they're using old Russian tech that they had from the Afghanistan conflict, and there's no modern weapons being used, and it's pretty much junk, and this and that. And then you have the Russian state media going out there and saying, oh no, this attack was used with our new supersonic missiles that are top of the line technology, and they go so and so much faster than these missiles. And like, how do you know who's wrong and who's right? Because obviously, you know, Russia is the attacking party. Obviously, we're in bed with Ukraine at this point, as I think we should be. I mean, they're pretty much on the defensive, but it's like, who do you believe? You know what I mean? You get two stories. You're not really sure on the integrity or, you know, honesty of either one. You know who you kind of want to believe, but really you can't say either way.
No, and you can't believe, and you can't necessarily believe our involvement either. Like when this all first started, I did a podcast about it. I call it, here's me plugging my own podcast again, which way I think what did we call it, Ron? What did we call it? Like watch the right hand? I think that's what it was. Because I said, I'm like, here's our involvement over here with Ukraine, right? But is that distracting us from other stuff that's going on over here? Because
absolutely. I think our government does that quite a bit.
I mean, think about it. Why nobody gives a shit about the UAPs right now? How is that not the biggest shit that's ever happened in one of the biggest things that's ever happened in this country, where we admit that there's stuff that's out there that we don't know what it is?
Well, that's because, like Ron said, I mean, the Amber Heard trial's on right now, and that's far more entertaining and viral than, you know, news that UFOs are possibly real, or they even say are real.
Yeah, and the Beaveman asked me that before he came on. It's like, have you been following the trial? I'm like, no, I don't give a shit. But of course, I guess Amber Heard does.
Hi-yo. 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 Way to go, Rez. Hi-yo. No, But no, again, it just goes back to what our freedoms are and if we have actual any freedoms at all whatsoever. If I had to pay for a podcast, I think I would do it. One, it'd have to be a lot of money for me not to do it, and I don't think it would ever be a lot of money. I don't think they'd come down and say, "Oh, this is like when you get that medallion or whatever to be a taxi cab driver in New York that costs you $1 million." Okay, obviously that I'm not going to do. But if it was something like, "Oh, you got to pay $10 a month, or you got to pay $1,000 a year," or something, which would still seem like a lot to me. But I would probably still do it because this is so much more important to me. You're in season 3. We do our seasons by year, which you can do however you want your seasons. Some people don't do seasons at all. I mean, we're in season 3. I have 160 plus, episodes. I go plugging myself again. But
whoa,
I would continue to do it.
I'm a black belt, by the way.
Yeah, but nobody gives a shit about that, honestly. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody gives a shit that you're a black belt.
No.
I wear a belt that's black, but I just bought that off the rack at Target.
That's basically what he did.
Earn it.
Basically, that's what he did also.
What I did. Well, you work security, so I'm pretty sure you're a pretty badass dude.
Oh, I got a cool Velcro belt that I can peel off, and it makes that cool Velcro sound. It's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah,
that's
a stiff belt.
Sound,
those belts are so stiff.
Ball gag.
Those belts are stiff.
Pretty stiff and hard and sleek.
Yeah. Speaking of stiff. Hey there, members of the Great Slaptail Nation. It's me, the Beaveman, and I'm here to deliver you a message from beyond the stars about our sponsor for this episode, Swiss Navy. No matter who you love or how you love, Swiss Navy products set the bar for sexual enhancement. There's more glide, more comfort, and even products for longer-lasting pleasure. Great. Now that we have our professional corporate talk out of the way, on a more personal note, I love Swiss Navy silicone lubricant. It's amazing. I'm not joking. It is so amazing that I'm hesitant to try the other products because I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to use it on the rare occasions the Swan and I have sex. It's like a sexual force multiplier. Try it. You won't be disappointed, and I promise to try the other products. After all, is there a better way of sharing a product review than with your listening audience? Of course not. Swiss Navy has a wide range of premium products to choose from for whatever amount fills your hole. By the way, my son wrote that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm such a proud father today. But they have options from travel sizes of only 2 ounces all the way up to a gallon option for certain products. I'll leave it up to your imagination, dear listener, what can be accomplished with a gallon of premium quality lube. But don't just take my word for it. Try it out for yourself by going to SwissNavy.com. Once again, that's SwissNavy.com. And in your order comments, let them know the Slaptail Squad sent you. Swiss Navy, no matter who you love or how you love. Adios, mooch fuckos. What if we could barter for the right to podcast?
You're getting better at the countdown, by the way. I will admit.
Rons, again, you don't have to mention what we're doing during the podcast. See, it's supposed to be this seamless thing, and yet every time you do it, when people do a commercial on TV, let's take it back when there was only. Remember when we were kids, Rons, and there was only 3 networks.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah,
remember when there would be a commercial break? When the commercial was over, did the people in the TV show talk about the commercial and the transition?
Actually,
of course.
they did.
No, they didn't.
Go back to watching some of the old Johnny Carson shows. They did.
Rons, why?
Okay, maybe I'm just too old. Maybe I'm just too old.
To be fair to Ron's, a lube ad is probably the perfect sponsor for you guys.
Thank you.
To get into people's ear holes by force. So.
that was. Bravo, JD. That was awesome. But
what if you had to barter? What if you could barter instead of pay money for your podcast? Would that be acceptable?
How so?
Rons?
Oh yes. We
Rons, the last time you sucked a dude off, would that be?
No, don't.
Would you?
Oh, God.
Would that be acceptable for you to do that for our podcast to continue?
No. First of all, I like how you're coming at me with the gay stuff, and I'm okay with that. But
the
I
gay
don't want to
stuff. Did you just call it the gay stuff?
Well, what would I call it? The non-heterosexual stuff. Right. I like how you I like how you just turned this on me. I've had our listeners, right, come up to me and they go, "Is the Beaveman like that?" I said, "Yeah, I've got to be careful what I say because he will turn everything I say on me."
They'd say what?
Are
Sorry.
you saying, in a nutshell, would I trade sexual services to get our podcast out there?
Yes, that's what I said. I said barter. Could you barter to keep our podcast going?
Barter?
You're the
versus
number
sexual
2.
services?
You're my number 2. You got to do something. You can't
Yeah,
just sit back and coast on your talent.
Well,
Honestly, give me a couple of gallons of that wonderful Swiss Navy lube, and we'll get it done.
I mean, who better to do this, Rons, than you? You're curious. You should just...
Are you fucking pimping me out now to JD?
No!
Holy
Why
shit.
did I...
Yeah,
JD can't keep
you're
our
pimping me
podcast on
out
the air.
to JD.
Why would I be pimping you out to him?
Am I going to call you Big Daddy now? Big Daddy?
I mean, you can if you want to.
Beaveman?
I mean, I'm sure if you want to. I mean, if you want, but I don't...
Call you Big Daddy Beaveman and JD's gonna
Why?
come
Wait.
back
So wait a
with
minute. Let me
review?
get this straight. Why would I be pimping you out to JD? He can't keep our show on the air. He's not the one that I'm talking about that we would have to have favors for to keep us on there. You just immediately though decided that that's the first place you were going to go.
Okay, first of all, did you not hear him that he would take a couple of gallons of that lube? What the hell is he going to use it on? And honestly, I
can't
don't
you
want
use
him to
lube
answer
on?
that question just yet.
What can't you use it for? I was gonna start using it as a moisturizer.
I mean, there's no such thing as too much lube, right?
I haven't found that to be the truth yet.
I guess if you're enthusiastic about lube, I guess not.
Rons, are you not enthusiastic about lube?
Not as much as I used to be. Dead silence.
I don't even know what to say about that. So I'm trying to decide why you're not as enthusiastic about it anymore. I'm like, as time goes by, you should be
Yes,
more
as time goes
enthusiastic about it because, it's kind of like you're, at this point in your wife's life, she can't spare too much
powder
moisture.
donut.
Yeah, she can't spare too much moisture. So you might have to be a little bit more enthusiastic about.
Wow.
You might have to be a bit more enthusiastic about lube than you
what
were,
do you mean
say,
by that,
20 years
Beaveman?
ago.
What
I'm
do you
just
mean
saying that
he-
I'm just saying that if some trauma or something emotional happened in your wife's life, she has two decisions. She can either cry and waste that moisture, or she can retain it for where it's more important to have it.
So are you
That's
saying
what I'm
that
saying.
women's tears accentuate
Ouch.
moisture?
I'm just saying that she doesn't have moisture to spare, and so she needs to conserve it. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Whoa.
And why is that?
What do I have to explain to you? What happens
By
to
all
a
means.
woman after
You're in
menopause?
the medical field where, as I'm not. I mean, I don't know how the vajayjay works.
Clearly, you don't know how the JJ works. I want to make that. I'm going to have to go back now and just. Can you say that again? Because I'm going to isolate that as a sound clip. You just saying, I don't know how the JJ works.
All right, you ready? I don't know how the vajayjay works.
Okay, I'm just going to turn it up just a little bit louder. Go ahead.
All right. I do not know how the vajayjay works.
You're going to make it proper
All
English. I do not know how the
All right,
JJ works.
Beaveman, the email is the Monsters Lair podcast at gmail.com. If you can isolate that and send me the sample, I will gladly use it on my show as well in tribute to Ron's.
I will definitely make a soundbite out of that.
Oh,
And yes,
you know what?
I will
That's
send it
awesome,
to you.
Kitty. That's fucking awesome. I'll tell you what. That's awesome. I will make it a point to listen to your podcast whenever I get a chance. I really will.
He's very busy, man. He's very busy. He's saving the world.
Oh man, they keep.
He's saving the world,
well,
taking one package in the face at a time.
Yes, I am. All right.
He's picking it up,
So,
he's putting it
yeah,
in, putting it down, pulling it out, putting it back.
Oh
All those
man,
fun things.
I was coaching.
Apparently dry or wet.
Yeah.
Dry or what?
He finds that
So
lube, he doesn't think about it as much as he used to, but he should.
This is the mentality that I work with, or that I train with sometimes. I was teaching, or
Well, if
I'm
you
sorry, I
train
was
with
coaching.
things, you should also be concerned about lube if you're doing a lot of training.
I was coaching.
I don't recommend it
nunchaku.
though. Training's not good for you, Ron. You shouldn't be involved in anything like that. It's going to come back to get you.
I was coaching in nunchaku, and I was using a term where you pull out the nunchaku and you swing it up to the face. I said, so you want to use this pull out method, and everybody started snickering. I'm like, why are you snickering? Because you just said something funny. I'm like, what? You use a pull out method to swing out towards the face. They're like, the pull out method doesn't work. It's like, why? That's how people get pregnant. I'm like, what? And then I got it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Well, you know what? Your people are just inappropriate, and you should stop.
Oh, really?
You should stop.
Have you seen?
Yeah, your class is really loud and obnoxious and annoying, and I'm about to go over there and start thumping people. Like, maybe you guys should practice. Maybe you guys should work on your style instead of being obnoxious all the time. Anyway, what if we had a regulating body? I'm going to just ask that question. We got like 10 minutes left. What if we fell under a regulating body? What do you think that would be like? What if they took away our chance of saying my favorite word? And I don't mean right.
Fuckos?
Just fuck in general. Is it an adverb, noun, verb? However I plan on using it. What if they took it away? What if the FCC won't let me be, or let me be me?
JD fucking
so let me see.
Let him answer.
You know, they tried to shut me down on MTV.
God, he starts a sentence, you jump in, and he's being a really polite guest, and he goes quiet. So you say this, and he's like, JD, what's your opinion? And he starts to say something.
But you know what, Ron? It feels so empty without me.
You know, if you had lube, it'd probably be full.
Yeah, so come on and dip. Come on your lips. Fuck that. Come on your lips and some on your tits. You know what I mean, Ron? You know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea, but we'll come.
I didn't think you would.
Ron's is not up on the current Eminem, I don't think.
It's not even current.
No, I know. What is that, 12 years old at this point?
At least, more? Probably more than that. I don't know. No, but what were you going to say, JD? Go ahead. What if?
Honestly, if they started regulating it that harshly, I probably would conform right off the bat, but I would have some serious second guessing going on about continuing. Because to allude to Ron's point earlier, I mean, the nature of free speech and what we do in the podcasts, I think that's a lot of the reason that people come to the podcasting world in general to listen, is because of its unfilteredness, its uncensoredness, and its freedom to say things that, you know, your average radio talk show can't get away with, or your average TV show can't get away with, and it's more honest that way. And I would, like I said, I'm so far in at this point, I wouldn't want to just give it up over something small like that, but that would be the turning point for me, is when they start bringing in the regulations, start more harshly monitoring content and telling me what I can and can't say.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'll back that up.
And it's like anything else. Obviously, the podcast that you listen to them for a reason. If you find a podcast that is so different from your own point of view, you're not going to listen to it anyway. So yeah, it's not like I'm going to be listening.
Beaveman, like your favorite show that you call out quite a bit, Last Podcast on the Left. Could you imagine if a governing body came in and monitored that show? I mean, half of their content would be watered down and probably completely unlistenable.
No, I mean, if you do right away on the podcast, there's times when it'll just start off with Henry yelling about something, which is hilarious.
Right.
And it's even
have to completely remove him from the show altogether.
Yeah, and again, you know, that show is those three guys, and you take away one piece of it, that's a tough one to keep going.
I think if that were to happen, I think there'd still be some podcasts out there that would go completely underground. I mean, on that note, let's face it, there's a lot of hate speech out there that seemed to filter its way back into society somehow. And this would be no different. Although it wouldn't be hate speech, but you know, there'll always be an outlet somewhere to find it. And if you want to release it, it will be released. And I think if they try to do that, which I doubt they will, because they can't control this monster, it's already out of the bag. is that we'll still do it. I'll still do it, and I will be proud to be part of an underground conspiracy movement for freedom of speech. All right, and I will say the aliens are commanding me to do this and let people know where the keypad is on the tree to let you into the underground base. Right? Yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, when you asked me to come on board as a guest, I was so smitten. I was like, cool. And then you asked
Is
me
that
to
the
be
right
regular.
word? Is that really the word that you want to use? That you were smitten to come on this podcast?
I was overjoyed. I was just, wow, I get to do a podcast.
And at that
with
point,
you.
Just a little.
Is that what happened? At that point, did you?
Just a little.
Definitely.
Is that what happened?
Definitely.
Just a little.
Okay.
He started compiling lists at that point to get ready.
Definitely. Yeah, this is a juggernaut that can't be stopped, and if they try to regulate it, it won't be regulated.
I would hope
think you're right, Ron's. I think at this point the podcasting medium is so saturated with so many shows, and to Beaveman's point, I mean, it's so international at this point. I don't even think they would begin to try to start monitoring. They might do it to some of the big major podcasts out there like Rogan or some of those shows, but I mean, look at his show, how it is. Even as mainstream as his show is now, he says some pretty outlandish and crazy shit on there.
Oh yeah,
and gets away with it scot-free. So,
well, okay, then with that note, should there be some accountability to podcasters?
Well, the thing is, you always have to remember that you can say whatever you want to say. You just have to remember that you have to kind of either be able to ready to defend what you say or to show that you've evolved in some way. It's kind of like the music of the Beastie Boys, or when they would talk about things that you talk about when you're a young man, and their music evolves where they're not talking about that stuff anymore. It's the same thing with podcasting. It's the same thing with your whole life. If you would have asked me in 1991, when I was a young man in the Army, if I would have a friend if I would be really good friends with somebody who was gay, I'd have been like, I don't think that's typically what would happen with me, because that's not the culture that I grew up with inside the military. And yet you could fast forward now where I go to the Pride festivals every year or whatever. Would I have seen myself that way, 30 or 24, 25, 26, 27 years later? Probably not, but we all evolve as people. So you have to remember that you can say whatever you want to say, but it always depends on how many people are listening or who's listening, or it's going to come back at some point in time. If it comes back at some point in time, you can always defend what you said at those times. And who cares? I mean, look at how much we've evolved with social media. When Facebook was a big deal, or when MySpace was a big deal, they told us when I was working, at a certain job, they're like, don't post anything there because you'll get fired. Because they're looking at those things. That shit doesn't really happen that much anymore unless you go way out of your way to post some shit that you shouldn't post. I mean, you see people posting things who are actively in the military right now, posting themselves in bikinis and modeling shoots and stuff like that. And you've got some people that are saying that's not appropriate, that you're not representing the military. And you have other people saying, you know what, their command knows what they're doing and they're not violating anything. What difference does it make to you? Just don't look.
Well, it's sort of like before MySpace, I was blogging, and I was so afraid of the backlash. I did it under a pseudonym, but I had like I started to grow an underground.
That's when you were, what was it, Shiny Helmet? That's what you called yourself back then?
Yeah, definitely. It was Shiny Tinfoil Helmet guy.
I didn't think I don't remember tinfoil being part of it. It was just Shiny Helmet.
If he uses that Swiss Navy lube, he's definitely going to have a shiny helmet.
Yeah, that's right. Saying. That's what. He was Shiny Helmet, the swashbuckler.
There you go, the swashbuckler. Yeah.
With the tinfoil sword.
Yeah. With the tinfoil sword, yeah. But I was so worried about the backlash and people coming after me that knew me, that I made it so obscure that you could actually relate to it. So when I talked about people that I knew on this blog, it sounded like it was someone that you knew. I went through and I re-edited everything. I worded it differently. So it sounded like it was your neighbor. It wasn't my neighbor. Or it was your friend, but not my friend. Now, I did mention my brother in one of my blogs, and that was amazing. But he never read my blog anyway, so it was cool.
The fuck are you talking? Oh my
We'll talk
God.
about
And then
accountability.
there was that time.
Yeah,
I
then
remember
there
I
was
went
that
to
time.
Detroit Zoo and I was fascinated by the penguin exhibit. But then there was
Oh,
also
man.
that time I can remember back to when in second grade and we went to Biner Park Zoo and it was just a petting zoo then. And I had the corn. And what the fuck are you even talking about?
And at that petting zoo, they had goats and sheep and
Come on, keep it going, JD.
And rams. Their rams are different than
Don't-
sheep. They're different. It's a different
Right.
species altogether.
sorry, Rons, I can't compete with your listing skills. I
Oh, you don't,
attempted
no,
and
no.
failed miserably.
No, you didn't fail, but you were keeping right up there with the sarcasm that we all know and love from the Beaveman. And I'm like, come on, keep it going. Let's go. Let's
That's
go.
fine.
Keep it going.
He can take it. He can.
I
Shiny
can.
helmet, the swashbuckler, former blogger. But now it's totally different, right? Because now if you I think when we first started doing this, I was like, well, I'm not going to put my picture on our Instagram. And it's on there
Oh,
now.
you were so adamant about everything.
Yeah, which now I
you
don't
were
care.
just-
I mean, now I don't care because as again, I'm not doing anything. That this is all for entertainment. It's all for fun. I'm not doing anything. I even told my current employer, I'm like, before you hire me, listen to my podcast. Warning is an explicit podcast. Don't be offended. I'm not saying that you need to subscribe to it and listen to it all the time, but if you're going to hire me, this is something that I do that is very important to me. And if you don't like it, don't hire me. But if you hire me, I'm not going to stop doing this. This is what I do. And they hired me, and I know for a fact they listened to it. I don't think they still listen to it. I know that they did, but I don't know if they still listen to it. But it's you can see this evolution of everything. So do I think that I don't think they'll ever be able to regulate us. There's too many of us. There's too many of us. There's too many countries that do it. You would have to shut down the internet, basically.
Well, I think every country has its own laws, so it would be doing that. So, what about you, JD? I mean, are you self-employed, or does your employer know about what you do?
There's a select group of a few people at my work that I was comfortable letting in on the secret of me being a podcast host that I thought could handle it. But as far as being as brave as the Beaveman and saying, here's my podcast, check it out or don't, just due to the nature of some of the content on my episodes and due to the nature of how corporate and tied in federally to the government that my day job is, I haven't been that comfortable yet. But there's a few employees that I have befriended outside of work that I work alongside that I have clued in that I knew would be cool with it. Now, if they go and show people that they work with that I may not get along with or may not think can handle it, that's whatever. But yeah.
So you actually work for the government?
That's not what he said.
Interesting.
That's not what he said,
Wow.
Rons.
I work for a company that is heavily regulated by the government. Let's say that.
It's my own conspiracy theory. I thought
That's okay.
well,
Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead. I will allow it.
Okay,
Rons. I will allow
I
it.
will allow it.
I will allow it. No, I think that I'm just so comfortable with the fact that I do it, and it's such a huge part of my life that I'm like, well, if you don't like it, that's why it was very important to me as a bargaining chip. Anyway, I said, you don't like it, don't hire me. I'll go work somewhere else. I was a contractor at the time, though, so I'm like, it's not going to bother me if you don't hire me because I'll just keep contracting, which is fine.
And Beaveman, if you don't mind asking, how much of that is due to the fact that your content is more just kind of all over the place and kind of just you being you,
What?
as if you were to have a specific
Did
like
you just
niche
say?
or genre
Did you
of
just say
content?
that I'm everywhere? That my thought process is scattered? No.
Not necessarily your thought process, but obviously your show is not thematic. You don't
You're
have
correct. Yeah.
an overarching topic that you're doing smaller topics of. You're kind of just whatever comes to mind and in the moment per episode. Would
Yeah.
it be different if you had like a more niche subject matter that you
I think so.
covered?
Maybe. I mean, if there was, I definitely wouldn't do anything targeted at, if it was a more targeted thing where I was like talking about, say, the government all the time, that'd probably be a different thing. Like if I worked for the government, I definitely wouldn't talk about the government all the time.
Yeah, I think that's what it is with me because it being a private security firm, we do have a lot of former law enforcement, former military, not just that work with us, but also that work around us. We go through a lot of training, and our trainers may be from a certain background. And, it's no secret that the majority of military and law enforcement that are retired and doing private security are more on the far right-wing extreme of the spectrum, and may not be cool with me talking about UFOs or, people having sex with ghosts or things of that nature.
Ribbon Facting Ghostbusters, though.
Yeah, what's interesting though is that I had this discussion with my father. It was a brief one. I actually said to him, I told him, I said, you know what? You're the only veteran that I know personally that has as much faith in what the government does. Like, it just goes to show that you're not because he didn't have what I consider a combat job specialty, kind of like the Rons. I'm like, but you're one of the only ones that I know who has that much faith in the government. I'm like, I don't have that much faith in the government. I have great faith in the country, but not the government itself and the people that support it. I have faith in them. I'm like, but the government itself and how things run, I'm like, if you don't believe in conspiracies and secrets, I'm like, what job did you have in the military? I'm like, they gave me shots that I still don't know what they were. So they do all kinds of funny stuff.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the majority of guys from my age group. A lot of the guys I went to high school with enlisted in the Marines, and I attended high school from like 02 to about 06. 06 was my graduating year, and a lot of those guys.
Good on you.
Guys went over to Iraq and Afghanistan, like right in the thick of it, and the majority of those guys that came back, they obviously PTSD and everything is what it is, but furthermore than that, they came back and were like, the government's a shit show, man. Like, everything we did was misinformation, wrong coordinates, people not fit to lead. So I think guys from my generation that have gone in and served, of course, I can't speak personally because I haven't, but just knowing those guys and being close friends with those guys and hearing their stories and what they had to say, I think a lot of them are in that same vein, like not really trusting of the government, hopeful that they're doing the right thing and patriotic and, hopeful for America. But as far as the government as an entity, not so much.
Right. Well, when you go to do stuff like that, you're not fighting for your country or your government. You're fighting for the people that are to the left and the right of you to get them home and hoping that they're doing the same thing for you. So all that idealism, that's what people don't understand who, a lot of people don't understand who didn't serve, is like all that idealism goes out the window. You could fight against this country today and then your government could tell you tomorrow, oh, no, they're on our side now. So we're not going to fight against them anymore. We're going to fight with them against somebody else. And then you just, you flip that switch. You're like, okay,
yeah.
And I'm still going to, my mission is still the same. The mission is still for me to get home, for me to get these guys home. That's still the same thing. It's always going to be the same way.
Yeah. Look at the Cold War era, my era. I mean,
that's my era too, Ron's. I'm also Cold War.
Your era too. But Poland was our enemy at one point, and all of a sudden they became. Look at East and West Germany before they unified, right? Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's what do you believe? How do you believe it? I mean, what are the ideals that are they still there? So yeah.
Yeah, it just amazes me that there's this romanticized idea about even people my age and Ron's age and older than us that, like my father, that doesn't believe in conspiracies and all that other stuff. And you're like, how do you not believe that shit? I'm like, what daydream? What? I also have to remember that my father never spent a night in the field. He never he never slept underneath the stars, never had to lay on the ground, none of that stuff. I'm like, okay, so that's probably the huge difference between you and I. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, but
let him believe what he wants to believe.
Go ahead, JD.
I was just going to say, it's like the old adage, everyone talks shit until they get hit in the mouth for the first time.
No, definitely. But I think the ability to question our government is right. Everybody should have. And when we don't question it and we're sheep underneath someone's arm.
Or ram.
It's like, or ram, right? It becomes...
or under someone's kilt.
There you go. We begin to fall into this thing that we don't question anything anymore. We just kind of believe it. And then our own beliefs go out the window. I mean, with your podcast, JD, I mean, you question everything that.
How do you know?
seems
Have you listened to his
normal.
fucking podcast? Don't act like
I'm
you've listened to his
listening to him.
podcast.
I'm listening to him.
That was pretty smooth, right? He made it sound like he's been listening for
He's like,
years.
you know, and when
All
I
3
listened to
seasons.
that last episode,
Yeah,
stop
but
playing like you
you
know
know,
what the
smooth,
fuck is
I like
going
that.
on.
thank you. I can be smooth, but you know, when you have the ability to question something and not feel retribution for it, that's awesome. That really is. But that's why I don't think they'll ever regulate podcasting. And if they do, there'll be guys like you and me and JD here that probably go underground, or JD will probably be the surface, making it look good on top, and then underneath he'll be JD. Let me tell you about the real stuff. Come over here. Right?
I mean, I can
So,
I can
it'll be cool.
conform to a certain degree. I can
No
do that.
way.
I can conform to do what I want to do. So I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm not too worried about it. It already got squashed once. I mean, the patent, you know, that whole them trying to say that there was a patent on podcast, that got squashed. So I think podcast is pretty well protected. And the other reason why I think that podcasting is pretty well protected is President Obama was on Mark Maron's podcast. So, you know,
Man, that's a hell of a get, right? That's a dream guest there.
when he was president.
Yeah,
So that's pretty
that's
impressive.
clout.
That's pretty impressive. All right. Well, I think that we've sort of
We got
answered that
JD.
question.
Pretty damn impressive.
What the fuck did you say? What did you
I
say?
said we got JD, motherfucker. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, but JD's not really we don't do interviews, and JD and I met on the Wisdom app, I think, right? And then
Hey, I don't care how you guys met. You guys make a great couple.
Yeah, it was wisdom.
It was quote unquote wisdom. It was the quote wisdom app. You know what I
And
find
it's
funny
better
about the
to
wisdom app? You know what? And I'm just gonna shut up. You can find me on the Wisdom
I'll
app.
tell you what I find funny about the wisdom app.
What's that?
It got really religious really quickly, and it made me very uncomfortable.
It was
being
like
there.
that from the beginning. Whenever you flip through the talks on there, they're always about that stuff. That's why when people I think listen to me, I actually surprised when people pop in and listen to me. I'm like, and then people will pop in and start talking to me about stuff. I'm like, did you see the title of my talk by any chance, or did you just want to hop on and talk about yourself?
And the other thing I find funny about it is everyone that's on there self-admittedly has no idea why they're there, because it seems like Wisdom just mass blasted out emails to everyone and anyone that had a podcast, whether they were new, had 100 episodes or 1 episode, and it seems like no one's really sure how they wound up over there.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing because I was part of the beta testing, so that's how I was on there. And they asked me specifically, they're like, "Oh, because you have a comedy podcast." I'm like, "Okay," but a lot of people that pop on there now, they're like, "Oh, I haven't even started podcasting," or I'm an expert, and you're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Anyway,
Right.
whatever. I just use it to get on there to talk with and try to network with people who might be interesting to come on the podcast.
Hey, it worked out for us.
Worked out for us. Whatever. There you go. Not always going to work out. All right. So before we go, I did want to say we did want to talk about JD's podcast real quick. JD, I listened to your last podcast. I think it's your last one about the werewolves, or part 1.
Yeah, that would have been the most recent episode. Yeah.
Good episode. I enjoyed it. Well, the part that I thought was funniest was you were reading, and you picked a very hard. The reason why your topic is hard is because there's a lot of, I guess you would say, Scandinavian names that you had to try to pronounce.
Yeah, I took a big bite out of that, and I regret every second of that decision since I've done that.
I was like,
I
he's
haven't
trying to
even
pronounce
listened to
all
that
those
episode
SVLXQT names, and I'm like, oh my god, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
The best part
And
is
I did
too
that
is
in one read and one run, and it was horrific.
it was great because what he didn't do was he didn't edit it out. And there was a time when you tried to pronounce a word like 3 times in a row and you didn't take it out, which is why I think it's very important when people are editing podcasts. Don't take everything out. It makes it so much better when you leave it in. It makes it so much more real.
I think it humanizes it, right? Because people that go and look that word up, they're going to be like, oh, I see what he was trying to say. But
And there was another part that you were reading it, and I can't remember what the chick's name was, and you just stopped your reading and you go, "What a drama queen," or some shit like that. I was like, "Yes, that was good. I enjoyed that. I was laughing when I was listening." So it was a good story.
Yeah, I try
I
to
look
throw
forward.
those little tidbits in there for people when it's a long read like that, especially something from the Poetic Edda, which is this huge, giant, long, wordy, just piece of literature. I try to throw little tidbits and my little sample sounds and things like that, little inside jokes in there as I'm reading it, so it's not such a chore to listen to.
I enjoyed it. Ron's, how did you feel about it when you listened to it? Oh, wait.
Oh, wait. Well, let me see if I
No,
can smooth
Ron's,
this
it's
over.
fine.
Are you sure?
Ron, I think you would
'Cause,
like it.
every time
You would like it. You're of that mindset. You like the horror genre. You would like it.
I do. A horror or horror?
Yes. What do you think I said?
Sometimes both.
Sometimes both. Yeah. Yeah, it's if it's got a good vibe to it and I like listening, I'll listen to anything. I just wish I had more time to listen to stuff.
He's very busy. Ron's is very busy. He's a busy man.
Extremely.
All right, JD, would you like to go ahead and promote your stuff? We'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, I would love the opportunity. Thanks for having me on to allow me to do so. You can check me out, Monsters Lair podcast. Google it. The best place to find all of my stuff is on Podpage. I don't know if you guys have a Podpage for your show. I would highly recommend it.
Ron's has a pod page,
it's-
but he had to get hydrocortisone cream for it. It's finally clearing up.
There
Always.
you go. So they can be pretty nasty
Oh,
sometimes.
they can. They can.
But links for all the streaming services that I have my show on are there in one central location. So if you are more of a Spotify person than an iTunes person, or vice versa, or you like Amazon Music, you can go to that one central location, find it all there, and kind of pick whichever one you like. I do ask that anyone that does come on and listen, give me a quick rating and review. As you guys know how that works with the algorithms and everything. It doesn't matter what you say, as long as you say something, it drives those ratings up and gets me to the top of the listening for whatever genre or category I am under. Which it's still a travesty to me that there's not a specific paranormal genre for podcasting yet, considering guys like Jim Harold basically made podcasting what it is based off of that genre. But that's just me getting away from topic at hand or ranting. But yeah, Monsters Lair or the Monsters Lair podcast. Go and check me out. As Beaveman mentioned, my latest episode was on the history of werewolves. That's going to be a continuing multi-part episode. It's not going to be all continuous all at once. It's going to kind of pop up here and there as a continuation of that series. And then my very next episode coming out will be coming out at midnight on Monday, which is my normal time slot. And it will be on a special bonus episode. I recently took an in-person trip to San Jose, California to visit the Winchester Mystery Mansion. And we did a tour of the interior and the grounds there. So I'm doing a special bonus episode on things that we found there and kind of the history of how that house came into be and the history of... Go ahead, Ron.
Not to go too much into it, right? Now, that's the house, right, that has places going nowhere.
Correct. Stairways to nowhere, doors to nowhere,
Okay.
windows that lead out to floors below of like eight stories down into nothing, and things of that nature. Sarah Winchester was actually the widow of William Wirt Winchester, who was the beneficiary of the Winchester Firearms Company. He died fairly young, and she inherited his millions. Decided to move out here west to California and build a crazy mansion. A lot of people say that the reason she chose to do that was because she was being plagued by the spirits of those killed by the Winchester firearms.
Interesting.
Which explains why there's a lot of crazy symbolism there. She uses the number 13 in the architecture quite a bit, and she uses her favorite spiritual symbol of the spider web in a lot of the stained glass windows, a lot of the architecture, a lot of the layout of the house. It's pretty interesting.
I heard something different, that she spoke to a medium, and the medium said that you need to continue building, or along that same line, though, that these spirits will haunt you. So she kept on continuous building. I don't know how true that is, though.
That is another theory, and it is something that I also cover. I usually like to approach the topics from more than one angle, because with a lot of this stuff, there's no real like definite answer. There's a lot of different topics and theories around one central issue or topic, and you kind of follow those leads into like the common nugget, the core of truth at the center. And I like to follow those leads and down those rabbit holes to kind of see if we can find it.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing for that one then too.
Oh yeah, my little Papa Jonah is a big ghost conspiracy fan, so I'll definitely have her on your podcast.
Yeah, and I think I have a cool perspective on it because we were actually there on the grounds, you know, in the presence of this massive home and kind of feeling the vibe of it in the moment. So I think that gave me some unique insight that you might not get with other podcasts.
So I will ask you this then: did you get, you mentioned vibes? Did you feel did you get an uncomfortable feeling on there, or anything like all the paranormal shows that we see? Ghost hunters keep going there. Like, did you feel that? And I feel like an asshole because I will knock on wood or something real quick, and I'll turn to a little power down. I'm like, did you hear that? It's like, or I'll be next to a fan. And I'm like, oh, it just got cold in here. There's a ghost here. She's like, you're an ass. I'm like, don't say that. Don't make them upset.
Yeah, I
Don't
would
need
just
them
punch you in the
haunting me.
dick. Like you're ruining it. You could have just stayed at home if you're gonna ruin it.
Yeah, it definitely has a unique vibe. Now, if that's because it's quote unquote haunted, or if it's just because you know you're in the presence of real life history and you're kind of in this weird house with, like I said, stairways that lead to nowhere and doors that go to the outside with like a 3-story drop down to the floor and things of that nature, whether it's just the vibe of being in a weird place or, you know, there was something more to it than that. You definitely get a weird feeling when you're in there. I wouldn't say I found it quote unquote haunted or saw any ghost activity or anything like that, but it's definitely a cool place to be with kind of a magical feeling.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, I used to get that magical feeling, but it hasn't happened for a while. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, not usually though. Not usually.
Yeah,
That's where
it's really good magical feeling.
there you go.
Yeah. All right.
Unless
well,
you're like Ron's
yeah.
and you like it dry.
Yeah,
There you
apparently he
go.
does. Like
No
I
one's
don't understand that, but apparently he does. All right, well that's it for me. I wanted to thank JD for joining us. The Rons, as always, my number 2 for being here. The Swan is somewhere hiking in Arizona by the time this is being played, and Tremonde is on daddy duty this weekend, but hopefully they'll be back with us. Well, the Swan won't be back with us next week, but Tremonde probably will. All right. Well, I'm supposed to say at the end of the podcast, which I always forget to do, that of course you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter, that thing that I don't understand very well. Facebook, I kind of understand that. Of course, you can find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Google Play. You can find us every freaking flipping where. All you gotta do is type in the Slaptail Squad and you'll freaking find us. We got like we dominate like the first page and a half of a Google search. Hell yeah, we do. And of course, you can always leave us a review. We appreciate it. You can always send us an email at slaptailsquad@gmail.com. And you can always ask us to talk about stuff. As you know, as JD said, we don't really we don't have an idea of what we're gonna do. We don't follow a set path because we're fucking rebels, eh? That's my Canadian.
And that's the way it should be.
Fucking rebel, eh? All right, well, that's it for me from the Beaveman saying adios, amuchos.
And from the Rons, hey, and special shout out to JD. Thanks for showing up. Monsters of the Podcast. Check him out. JD, you got the last word.
I just want to say, Beaveman, Ron's, thank you guys for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and didn't think I would have this much fun, but I'm glad I came on and did.
What the fuck, man? You hear what he said? I didn't think I would have this much fun. That's kind of an assy thing to say.
Did he just diss us?
He just said I didn't think I would have that. Okay, that's fine then. That's fine.
I'll tell you what, them West Coast assholes.
I guess.